Section 3.1, pairs of lines and angles. So we have some vocab words here. Parallel lines. Parallel lines are two lines that will never intersect, and they have to be coplanar, so they have to be on the same flat surface. So imagine maybe two lines that look like this. Those appear to be parallel. The symbol, the notation for parallel are these little symbols in the picture. That's the parallel symbol, or let's say parallel sign. That's what you might see in the picture if the objects are parallel. Let's call this line L and line M. It might say L is parallel to M. So this symbol here is also the symbol for parallel. This is the marking for parallel in the picture. This is the symbol that you would use if you were writing it out. Now they do have to be coplanar. So picture drawing a line on your ceiling. Please don't do this, but imagine if you were to draw a line on the ceiling and then draw a line, maybe a vertical line on one of the walls. Now if you did that, it's very, very possible that those two lines would never touch. The line on the ceiling and the line on a wall might never touch. But the reason they never touch is because they're like one's on the ceiling and one's on the wall. They're not on the same surface. They're not in the same plane. So in order to be considered parallel, they do have to be on the same plane. So both lines would have to be on the ceiling or both lines would have to be on the wall. You can't have one on each. Skew is what we call it when they don't cross, but they don't cross because they are in different planes. So maybe here's what your ceiling would look like, and here is a wall. Maybe this line and this line. They're never going to cross because one's on the ceiling and one's on the wall, but we call them skew because they are not on the same plane. Parallel planes are planes that will never intersect. So think big flat surfaces around you that will never ever cross. So for example, the ceiling and the floor are hopefully parallel. They will never cross. The ceiling will never cross the floor. The wall to your left and the wall to your right are probably parallel. The desk or the table you are sitting at is probably parallel to the floor and the ceiling. It's probably a big flat surface that is horizontal, just like the floor and the ceiling. Those are parallel planes. So to draw it, it's a little trickier, but picture drawing like the top and the bottom of a box. Those would be parallel. Parallel postulates. So if you have a line and you have a point, there is exactly one line that goes through this point that is parallel to this line. There's only one way to draw it. That line would have to go like this. And there's only one of them. To draw a different line, we would have to kind of tilt the line a little bit, and as soon as we tilt it, it's no longer going to be parallel. They would eventually cross. The perpendicular postulate is very similar, but it says if you have a line and a point, there's only one line through that point that would be perpendicular. There's only one line that's going to make a 90-degree angle. If we drew a new line, a second line, it would have to be tilted and would no longer be 90 degrees. Now these words are important. Parallel is important. We'll use the word parallel a lot. But these bottom vocab words here, these 5 vocab words, are extremely important. So we're going to do one picture for all of them. It's going to be 2 lines and this line that crosses through them. And I'm going to label the angles. You should too. 1, 2, 3, 4 are the top 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 are the bottom 4. So the vocab, the first word is transversal. So trans, the prefix trans, you've heard this before. It means to cross. Most of the time when I say this at the high school level, most of my students, transgender is the most common usage that you've possibly heard. To cross genders, transgendered. Transcontinental Railroad. I don't know why this is the first one I think of, but this is the first one I think of. The Transcontinental Railroad, maybe from Monopoly or something like that. That's the railroad that went across the United States from the east to the west. A transatlantic flight, a flight that crosses the Atlantic Ocean. So trans means to cross. One of these 3 lines is the line that crosses the others. This one right here. That line is the transversal. That's the one that crosses. Transversal. And when you have 2 lines with a transversal, you get 8 angles. These angles have relationships. So the first one is corresponding. Corresponding angles are angles that are in the same position in what I'm going to call the clumps. So I say there are kind of 2 clumps here. There's the top clump with the 1, 2, 3, 4. They're all together. And then there's the bottom clump with the 5, 6, 7, 8. They're all together. So there's a clump. There's a clump. Corresponding angles have the same position in the clump. So like, let's do an angle 2 first. In that top clump, I would say angle 2 is kind of the top. It's at the top of those 4. It's maybe the northernmost angle. So which one's the top northernmost angle down here? That's the 6. So 2 and 6 are corresponding angles. They correspond. Correspond means to be in the same position. That's not just a math word. A lot of times, like in news articles or history books or science books, they'll list a bunch of things like Billy and Joe were 8 and 6 correspondingly. Well, that means that they put the people's names and the people's ages in the same order. Same thing. Same order, same place, that's corresponding. Okay, what about 1? I would say angle 1 is on the left. So what's on the left down here? 5. 1 and 5 correspond. What's another one? 3. 3 is kind of on the right side of these. So what's on the right side down here? 7. And then the only ones left have to go together. 4 and 8 are the ones kind of on the bottom part of the clump. So 4 is at the bottom and 8 is at the bottom. Alternate interior angles. So interior, most of you guys probably have heard that before. Interior means inside. Maybe you've worked on the interior of your car, or you want to be an interior designer, something like that. Interior means inside. So alternate means kind of like the opposite. If we're looking for alternate interior angles, we're looking for the angles on the inside that are opposite one another. So let's see here. Inside, what are we talking about? We're talking about inside these 2 lines. So if you were between those lines, there's one cover, here's another one. We're talking about 3, 4, 5, and 6. Those are the inside. That's the interior. Which ones are alternate, are kind of opposite corners? Well, 3 is opposite the 5, and 4 is opposite the 6. Notice they cross the transversal and they cross to the other line. So alternate interior is 3 and 5, and 4 and 6. Alternate exterior, same idea, except instead of dealing with the interior numbers, we're going to ignore those and focus on the exterior. The 1, the 2, the 8, and the 7. Those are the outside ones. Alternate. Opposite the 1 is the 7. Opposite the 2 is the 8. So 1 and 7 are alternate exterior, and 2 and 8. The last one is probably the trickiest one, is consecutive interior. So again, we're talking about the inside numbers, the 3, 4, 5, and 6. And consecutive. Consecutive, again, not a math word. Consecutive means in a row. So the place I've heard it is if you have to take maybe an antibiotic, you have to take it for consecutive days. That means like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. If you are playing a game, you may have to make basketball shots consecutively. That means in a row without missing any. Consecutive means in a row. So, for example, 3 is opposite the 5, but which one do we consider next, consecutive to the 3? The 4 is a good idea, and the 6 is a good idea. But I want to point something out. The 3 and the 4, right here, there's already a name for the 3 and the 4. Do you see it? They're right next to each other. They make a line. That's a linear pair. So 3 and 4 are already a linear pair. And because they're already a linear pair, that's not the consecutive one. We don't want to give it more names than we have to. 3 and 4 are a linear pair. 3 and 5 are alternate interior. 3 and 6 are the consecutive interior. That means 4 and 5 are also consecutive interior. Now we do not have consecutive exterior angles. Those don't exist. There are linear pairs. There are lots of linear pairs. 8 linear pairs in this picture. There are also vertical angles. Those, I told you, they're not going away. Vertical angles are here for the whole year of geometry. So 2 and 4 are vertical, 1 and 3 are vertical. So linear pairs and vertical angles are also here too. So let's look at example 1. State the line skew to FG in this picture. 1A. FG is kind of the top back of this picture. Skew, remember, a different plane and never going to cross. So what part is FG on? FG is on the top plane and FG is on the back plane. So we're looking for a different plane and not crossing. AD, see AD kind of goes up and it's on the front instead of the back. AD is never going to cross. BC is never going to cross. What's another one that'll never cross? CH is never going to cross. CH goes forward and backward here, but notice it's going to miss FG because FG is at the top and CH is at the bottom. Those are skew. Similarly, DE is skew. What about AB? AB does not cross FG, but notice AB is on the top with FG. Same thing, EH is never going to cross, but it's on the back. Now DC technically is never going to cross, and it's technically not on the same plane, but given its nature in this particular problem, we're not going to list it as skew. We're just going to ignore that one because from the information they give us, it will actually be parallel. So, state the lines perpendicular to FG. Perpendicular is 90 degrees. Where are we putting where are the 90-degree angles with FG? Look, right here, we have a 90-degree angle right there. We have a 90-degree angle right there. AF is perpendicular, line AF, and line BG. State the lines parallel to FG. So in the same plane, they're never going to cross. We said AB is never going to cross. EH is never going to cross. And technically DC will never cross. Alright, last one. State the planes parallel to FGH. So what flat part of this picture is never ever going to cross? Where is plane FGH? FGH is the back. So which side of this box would never ever ever cross the back part of this picture? Well, the top touches the back. The bottom touches the back. The right side touches over here at GH. The left side crosses over here at EF. But if you think about it, the front of a box and the back of the box are never going to touch. So this is plane, and you name a plane with 3 letters, A, B, C. Knowing the vocabulary, it's important, but as I said before, these vocab words right here, alternate interior, alternate exterior, consecutive interior, are the most important. As we proceed, for corresponding angles, I will often write CA. For alternate interior, I'll write AIA, alternate exterior, I'll write AEA, and consecutive interior, I'll say CIA. Saves a lot of letters writing them down. All right, example 2. Name all of the vertical angles, linear pairs, corresponding angles, alternate interior angles, alternate exterior angles, and consecutive interior angles in that picture. This is the most important skill from this section. So let's see which ones we can name. The first one, let's do vertical angles. I'm going to call them VA. Remember, vertical angles are the ones across from each other. If there was an X, it'd be, say, the top and the bottom, the left and the right. That's what vertical angles would look like. So, do you see any X's here? Maybe, look here. Do you see the X? What is across from the 1? A 3. So angle 1 and angle 3 are vertical. And then across from the 2 is 4. So angle 1 and angle 3, and angle 2 and angle 4. What about in the second part? Across from the 5, opposite the 5 is 7. So angle 5 and 7. And across from the 6 is the 8. So we have 4 pairs of vertical angles. 1 and 3, 2 and 4, 5 and 7, 6 and 8. Next, linear pair. We call it LP. Linear pair. Linear pair, remember, those you're going to be looking for a Y. Things that make a straight line with that little Y stick coming out. Let's see here. Ooh, here's a straight line. Do you see the 1 and the 4? They make a straight line. Right here is your Y. So angle 1 and angle 4. But also, 1 makes a straight line with angle 2. You see they're right next to each other. They share this part right here, and together they make a straight line. So 1 also makes a linear pair with angle 2. But then, look there. 2 and 3 make a straight line with the little stick coming off. Angle 2 and angle 3. And then another one here. 3 and 4 make a Y. See the Y? Angle 3 and angle 4. 1 and 2, 2 and 3, 3 and 4, 4 and 1. But then, same thing over here. 5 makes a straight line with 6. 6 makes a straight line with 7. 7 makes a straight line with 8. And 8 makes a straight line with 5. So angle 5 and angle 6. Angle 6 and angle 7. Angle 7 and angle 8. Angle 8 and angle 9. Lots of linear pairs in this picture. Now we get to the newer words, corresponding angles, CA. Remember, corresponding means in the same position or in the same order. So, we're talking about the 2 clumps of angles. The 1, 2, 3, 4 are one clump, they're one group. 5, 6, 7, 8 are the other group. How would you describe the location of angle 1? I would probably say it's in the top left of that group. So what's in the top left here? Top left, the 5. So angle 1 and angle 5. What about the 2? The 2 is maybe the top right, and the top right over here, 6. Angle 2 and angle 6. Similarly, angle 3 is the bottom right. It matches the 7. And then the 4 is bottom left, 8 is bottom left. They go together also. The next one, alternate interior angles, AIA. So, which ones are interior? Which ones are between the between the lines? In this case, they are actually parallel lines. They don't have to be, but which ones are in the middle of the 2 lines? The 2, the 5, the 3, and the 8. Alternate interior means opposite corners. So opposite corner from the 2 is the 8. And opposite corner from the 3 is the 5. Alternate exterior angles. Not the 2, 5, 3, 8. So it's the 1, 4, 6, and 7. Of the 1, 4, 6, 7, which one is opposite corner from the 1? It's the 7. And opposite corner from the 4 is the 6. One's top, one's bottom, and they're on the left and the right. They switch sides. The last one, consecutive interior angles. We're back to interior, the 2, 3, 5, 8, consecutive. They're next to each other. So which one is next to the angle 2? Well, 3 is next to 2, and 5 is next to 2. But we already put 2 and 3 on the lists right here. They're a linear pair. We don't want to put them on the list again, so this one is 2 and 5. Angle 2 and angle 5. Similarly, angle 3 and angle 8. All right, example 3. Name a pair of parallel lines and a pair of perpendicular lines. All right, so parallel, we're looking for the little arrows on them. Just like up here, we're looking for little arrows in the middle of your line. It could be 2 arrows and 2 arrows. It would just look like this. There'd be 2 of them, or it could be 3 of them. Just depends on the situation. So do you see any lines with the little arrows on them? I see arrows here. I see arrows there. These 2 down here both have 1 arrow. These 2 both have 2 arrows. What that means is that these 2 are parallel and these 2 are parallel, but they're not all parallel with one another. All 4 are not parallel together, but these 2 are parallel and these 2. So that's line WX is parallel to line YZ. Don't forget the symbols on top. The other 2 lines, UV is parallel to QR. Do we see any perpendicular? Are there any symbols here for perpendicular? The 90-degree mark. And right here, right in this corner. So that's between UV, line UV, and line ST. The symbol for perpendicular, it's like an upside down capital T. There are 2 line segments that are actually crossing at 90 degrees. You don't need to put the 90-degree symbol in it. That's just the symbol for perpendicular. Now example 4. We'll do part of it, but not the whole thing. It's a very, very long answer, and it's not necessarily worth all of its time. But it wants us to list corresponding angles, alternate interior, alternate exterior, and consecutive interior. So let's see here. Let's do some corresponding angles. Now there are 3 lines in this picture, and we have to determine which one we're going to consider the transversal at what time. Just because it's a transversal in one situation does not mean it's a transversal in another. So let's first look at maybe this part of the picture. The transversal is this line right here, the one going through the other 2. So in this situation, angle 2 corresponds. That's kind of like in the top left corner. What would you consider the top left in this picture? Well, they're not the same size. They no longer look the same. But the top left is the 6. So here's the line, the 2's above it. Here's the line, the 6 is above it. Angle 2 and angle 6 are corresponding. But also, look at this group then. Now this line is the transversal, and we have our 2 clumps. 2 is now still on the top left. Which one's on the top left over here? Well, it's above the transversal, and it's on the left side of the line. That's the 10. So angle 2 and angle 10 correspond. Let's look at the other clumps. These right here. Let's do the 6. Now this line here is the transversal. The 6 is to the right of the transversal, and it's kind of above the line. Maybe like on the top right of this group. What's on the top right of this group? To the right of the transversal and above the line is the 12. 6 corresponds to 12. And we could continue this with alternate interior, alternate exterior, but what you need to do, and you'll see I just grabbed, what was this? I grabbed my child's Valentine's Day card from preschool. It's been floating around, being played with. You can even see it has a heart sticker on the back, and he, I think, probably tried to draw an O. Grab a piece of paper lying around your house, cover up the picture part that you don't need. Too much information can be overwhelming, and you can't erase it from your paper, especially if you're using it on the computer. So grab something, cover up the part you don't need, focus on the part you do need, and it'll be easier to identify those angles. At this point in time, you should have enough information to do 3.1. Practice, study, memorize these vocab words right there.